Welcome. The topic we'll be discussing in this lecture is security aspects in operating system. So we'll be discussing these topics under this heading. We'll be discussing the security problem, the various threats, the system and network threats, and how cryptography can be used as a security tool. The objective of the topic is to discuss the various security threats and attacks, to explain the fundamentals of encryption, authentication, and hashing, also to understand how cryptography works. Okay. So, so as already defined in the previous topic, security basically aims to protect the system from external threat. The system is secure if resources used and accessed is as intended. So, so the intruders or the attackers or the crackers are the one who try to attack the security of a system. Okay. So here basically we use two terms. One is threat, the other one is attack. Let us try to understand what is a threat and what is an attack. A threat is a threat is actually it is a vulnerability. It is a vulnerability or some weak point in your system that is called as a threat. Okay, so a threat is basically a vulnerability or a weak point in the system that is called as threat. Okay, so because of this weak point, you may fear that somebody may attack us, or somebody or this weak point may easily allow someone to attack attack the system. So that is called as a threat. Okay, say for example, say in your home, one of the door is not so strong, then that is a threat. That is a threat because it allows uh, a potential thief to enter easily. Okay, so that is called as a threat. So threat is some weakness in the existing system which allows an attacker to easily take the advantage of that. That is called as threat. So threat basically is connected with vulnerability in the existing system, or what are the weak points, or what are the vulnerable entries, what are the vulnerable links through which somebody can gain access to the system. Such vulnerable points are called as threat. Okay, and what is an attack? An attack is an attempt to break the security. Attack is an attempt to break the security. Somebody is attempting to break the security. That is called as an attack. Okay, so the attacker may break the security either at a vulnerable link or maybe at some other link. That depends. Okay, most probably you can say that attacker will try to choose a vulnerable entry because already the entry point is vulnerable, so it will be easy for the attacker to gain advantage to gain access to the resource. Okay, so this is the two difference between threat and attack which you should understand. A threat is a vulnerable point in the system which allows an unauthorized user to gain access into the system easily. An attack is an attempt to break the security of a system. Okay, an attack can be either accident or malicious. Sometimes a user maybe accidentally attack. His intention might be different, but it may attack the system, and at some other times it may be malicious. That is, it is intentionally done. Okay, so it is easy to protect the system against accidental attack than from malicious attacks. Because what are the different situations under which a user may attack the system accidentally, that can be figured out, and precautions can be taken. But no such precautions but it is not that easy to make such precautions for malicious attacks. So the security violation can be broadly classified under these categories. So the first one is breach of confidentiality. So what is confidentiality? Confidentiality means uh, that is confidentiality means something it is not allowed to use by everyone. Only the right user can use that. Okay, so that is called as confidentiality. So here what happens if there is a breach of confidentiality, then the unauthorized person can read the data. The person who is not authorized, he can read the data if there is a breach of confidentiality. Okay, so if something is confidential, then it is secure. If it is not confidential, it is not secure. Okay. So, mm, so if it is a breach of confidentiality means an unauthorized person is reading your data, so that is a breach of confidentiality. A breach of integrity means an unauthorized person is modifying the data. He's not only just reading the data, he's changing the content. So uh, that is a breach of integrity. That is a breach of integrity. Okay, and breach of availability. Breach of availability means the unauthorized person is destroying the data. Is destroying the data. That is breach of availability. Okay. And theft of service. Theft of service means an unauthorized person is using a resource. He is not allowed to use the resource, but he is using the resource. So he is something like stealing the resource. And there is another security violation which is quite different, which is called as denial of service, which means that a legitimate user is not allowed to avail a service. Okay. So this you can see. So denial of service (DOS), which means that a legitimate user is not allowed to avail a service. Okay. Okay, it is as if that say somebody is having a account on a particular bank. It is very genuine that he is having an account. Okay, but some attack has happened, and when he approaches the bank personnel is saying that no, you don't have any account here. So that is a denial of service. Actually, he is not an attacker; he is a legitimate user, but some mishap has happened, so the system is considering him as an illegitimate user, so that is called as denial of service. So his service is denied, he is not served. Okay, so these are the broad categories of attacks. See here, confidentiality is the important thing, because finally an attacker want to break the confidentiality. Okay, if confidentiality is broken, then the attacker can do anything with the system. Okay, for example, you say your password is confidential. So if attacker gained access to your password, then what will happen? He can do anything. He can read your mail, he can reply from your mail to somebody else as if the mail was sent from you. Okay, or if somebody has gained access to your credit card number and the password, so that is a loss of confidentiality. Then what happens? He can do anything with your bank account, right? So an ultimate aim of an attacker to perform breach of confidentiality. For that, he may do so many small steps. Okay, right? This integrity is also important. Breach of integrity means the no more the data is integral. So it means that no more the data is in the safe form. The because the one who is the unauthorized person is modifying the data. Then he is modifying means he will be modifying to his requirement. Okay, fine. So there are different security violations which we'll see. These are termed as masquerading attack, replay attack, man in the middle attack, and session hijacking. So there is a diagram. Let us better understand that diagram. See the first diagram. So this diagram, so this particular, the first one, what it says in the sense, so so this particular diagram, okay, it is up to this point, right? So what it says in the sense, it is a normal case, but this is also one form of attack. You can call this as a passive attack. This can be called as a passive attack. Okay, so So in a passive attack, what happens in the sense, two users were communicating, a sender and the receiver, they are communicating. They are assuming that their communication is secure, that nobody else is listening to this communication, or nobody else is intruding in the communication. But actually there is an attacker. There is an attacker sitting in between the sender and the receiver. The attacker is passively listening to the sender and the receiver. The attacker is not doing anything, but the attacker listens. But the attacker listens and understands what is happening between these two communication. So this is also one form of attack. The attacker not actively involves in attacking, or in trying to access any resource, but still the attacker gains data, or she collect some information, which is very crucial. So this type of attack is called as passive attack. The second case is a masquerading attack. Masquerade in the sense pretending like somebody else. The meaning of masquerade is to pretend like somebody else. So here the actual sender, he is the actual sender and he is the actual receiver. Okay. But the attacker masquerades. But the attacker here masquerades. So this attacker, what she is doing in the sense, she behaves like the sender. She behaves like the sender and she communicates with the receiver. Okay. So let us say this person is uh, what do you call? Say this is Tom and this is John. Okay. So here John feels that he is talking with Tom, but actually John is not talking with John. John is not talking with Tom. John is talking with the attacker. Okay. Okay, John is talking with the attacker, right? So this type of attack is called as masquerade attack. Okay. So let us call this attacker as allies. So John is thinking that he is talking with uh, Tom, but actually John is communicating with allies. Allies masquerades as Tom. Allies pretends like Tom. So this type of attack is called as masquerading attack. The third type of attack is called as man in the middle attack. Man in the middle attack. Here the attacker actively uh, impersonate both the sender and the receiver. So every communication that the sender is sending, say say this is Tom and this is John. So the Tom is thinking that he is communicating with John, and John is thinking that he is communicating with Tom. But actually, what is happening is whatever John sends, it goes to allies first, the attacker. The attacker allies first, and the attacker modifies this data according to her requirement or her need, and then the attacker sends the data back to Tom, right? Similarly, whatever Tom sends to John, it don't reaches John directly. Rather, it first reaches allies, the attacker, and allies again modifies the data according to her requirement, and she sends the data back to John. So this type of attack is called as man in the middle attack, and John and Tom don't know that somebody is doing like this. Okay, so these are the different types of attacks that can happen in a network. Okay. Other than that, here there is another attack which is called as replay attack. The the replay attack, what does it mean by replay attack? In the sense, say in this diagram, say 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 the sender Tom is requesting John that you send me some X amount of money. You send some X amount of money to so and so bank account. Like that, Tom is sending a message to John. Send X amount of money to so and so bank account. So that is the message. Okay, let us assume that message is encrypted. That message is encrypted, and Tom is sending that message to John. Okay. Now the attacker is listening to this communication. As the attacker is listening to his communication for a long period of time, somehow the attacker understands that this message is where Tom is requesting money from John. Now Tom has requested this money and John got the Tom requested the money and John sent the money and Tom got the money. That is fine. But later, after some more time or some more days, attacker Alice, what she can do in the sense, he can send the same packet which Tom has already sent. This packet she can store in her system, thinking that in future it may be useful for us. Because some other time, if she wants money, she can ask to John, pretending as Tom. Okay. So later, say maybe after 1 week or 1 month or 1 year, what Alice can do in the sense, Alice can transmit the same packet to John. Okay. Now John will think that again Tom is asking me some money and John will send the money. Okay. But now here the account number Alice can change. Instead of Tom's account number, she can give her account number. Okay. So the money will be sent to her account number. So this type of attack, so this type of attack is called as replay attack. So you are replaying. So John has already sent one packet. Okay, that packet, you are replaying, the attacker is replaying it again she is sending it, and by that she is getting her jobs done. Okay. Or 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 simplest case, what you can say is, say that uh, John is sending a password. John is sending a password to access some resource uh, in sorry, Tom is sending a password to access some resource in John's computer. So using this password, uh, Tom can access that particular resource in, in in John's computer. Okay. Now this password is not known. Password is encrypted, and it is sent. Okay. Now allies also don't know the password, but allies knows that using this password you can access John's resource. Allies need not know this password. Now allies will just store this packet as it is, the encrypted password, and later when she want to access the same resource after 2 days of or after 1 week, she will replay that packet to John. Okay, now John will think that Tom want to once again access that resource and he will give access. But now the person who is accessing is not John, it is Alice. So this type of attacks is called as replay attack. Okay, fine. So security should be done at several levels. It should be done at physical level. That is, you should have uh, data centers, servers, and you should ensure that physically your server rooms are protected uh, uh, with, with proper what you call security personnel, and not everybody is allowed to access the server room, and passwords are there in every system, all those things. And also at human level security, in the sense, avoid social engineering, phishing, all these things. Social engineering means somebody may talk with you very nicely, and somebody may request you to tell your ATM pin number, giving saying some stating some genuine reason or something, or somebody may ask for your password. All these are called the social engineering. It is somebody will act like as your best friend, and they will ask your confidential information. So such information you should not give up. Okay. Phishing, in the sense, a site which is acting like a genuine site. For example, if you have an account with ICICI Bank, then somebody else may create a website which is very similar to ICICI bank account, and they may send a mail, just log in to ICICI Bank and claim this benefit. If you log in now, your account will be credited with $100. Then if you click on that link, you will see a very similar page, which is very similar to your genuine ICICI web page. But you should be cautious enough to see the website address. Is it ICICI.com or something else? Then when you see it is something else, but still if you log in, then your password and all information will be lost, and obviously you may lose money. Okay. And also protection should be done at operating system level and at network levels. Okay. So there are some. Let us discuss some program threats. How security can be what you call security breach can happen due to some program threats. So one of the famous programs threats or Trojan horse. So what is a Trojan horse? So Trojan horse is basically it is a it is a useful program. It's a useful program which is running in your system, but it is modified by the attacker to perform some unauthorized task, to perform some unauthorized task, or or to use the system in a negative way. Okay, so a Trojan horse is as if, say, a program which is having a high level of privilege. Say a particular program which is having a high level of privilege, it is a genuine program, but the attacker has injected some wrong codes into the program. Okay, and now this program behaves in a different way. Okay, the code segment that misuses its environment. Okay, that program is a genuine program originally, which can perform a high privileged operation, but the attacker is successful in making sure that this will misuse its privilege. So such type of attacks are called as Trojan horse attack. For example, in operating system, if you see, the kernel processes are high privilege process. So if an attacker is able to inject some unnecessary codes into the kernel program and to ensure that the kernel process is misusing its privileges, then that is an example of a Trojan horse. Okay, then the second type of attacks is trapdoor. What is a trapdoor? So trapdoor is something like a backdoor entry. Sometimes in some of the programs, the creator of the program may leave a trapdoor. Okay, they may leave a trapdoor in the particular software. Generally it is not visible to the user, but there is a door. There is a door means there is an entry point to the software, which is not the normal entry point. Trapdoor means it's an entry point to the software, but which is not the normal entry point, which is a very easy and a shortcut entry. It's a very easy and a shortcut entry. Okay, so it is why the programmer does that, in the sense, because when the programmer want to debug the program, every time if he pass through the normal entry, then there may be set of things he may have to do, like giving the username, giving the password, and doing certain 4 5 steps he may have to do, so that his time will be wasted. But if he can directly get access to the system, then he can debug fastly. Okay, so because of that, sometimes uh, the programmer will have it. Normally when they create a software, there will be a trapdoor, and for debugging they will use this trapdoor, right? But finally when the program is released, the trapdoor will be closed. The trapdoor will be closed, and any user can access only through the normal way of entry, that is by giving the username and the password. But in some rare cases, the programmer may intentionally or unintentionally, he may not close the trapdoor. Okay, if the trapdoor is not closed, and if an attacker knows about this trapdoor, or somehow he identifies that there is a trapdoor, then through this trapdoor he can gain access to the software, and then he can do anything to this particular software. Okay, so this type of attack is called as trapdoor attack. Then there is called something called as logic bomb. So logic bomb attack, in the sense, uh, it is again a programmer gains the attacker gains access to one of the legitimate program, and he writes some logic, that is, if something happens, then do this. That is, until something happens, the program until something not happens, the program behaves like a normal program. But if something happened which the attacker don't want to happen, if such things happened, then this bomb will blast. Bomb, in the sense, it is not a physical bomb. So he might have given an instruction like, if this condition has reached, then you do this, you delete all these files, you corrupt, you make sure that the database is corrupted. Some code the attacker will write into a legitimate program. He may write some if condition. If this condition is satisfied, okay, then perform this attack. Okay, so as long as this condition is not satisfied, the attack will not happen. But the moment the condition is satisfied, then then the attack will fire. Okay, say an attacker fears that something should not happen. So, and if something happens, then it will be a problem for him. So the attacker will gain access to that code and he will write this code. So as long as that particular event not occurs, this code will not execute. But when that event occurs, then it will execute and it will spoil the system. So this type of attack is called as logic bomb. The second and the next type of attack is stack or buffer overflow. So as you know that stack is normally used to store the uh, function parameters, return address, all these things. So simply I will, it's a very large concept, but in a brief way I will try to explain. So stack will always store the return address, function return address where it should return. Okay. Now some assume that a particular attacker got access to the stack. A particular process P1 is running and say it is calling a function F1. So after F1 completes, it should return back to again to P1. So that return address it is writing into the stack and it is executing F1. Now the attacker, this attacker, what happened? This attacker say somehow he got access to the stack and attacker wants to run an malicious code, and this malicious code he has stored in some part of the memory. So he has stored starting from the memory location 2500 to say 2600. Starting from 2500 to 600 he has stored a malicious code. Now he wants this malicious code to get executed. So how he will get executed in the sense he already got access to the stack. So this is stack, and he knows that this process P1 is currently executing the function F1. But after once the function F1 completes, it will take the return address from the stack and it will start executing P1. Now this attacker, what he will do in the sense, this return address he will modify. Actually, the return address will point to P1. If P1's address is 1000, that is P1's next address is 1000, then return address will point to 1000. But attacker will modify this to, he will just change his return address to 2500. Okay, now what will happen when that particular process P1 completes F1 and it fetches the return address, it will not get its correct return address, rather it gets 2500. 2500 is the address of the the malicious code which is written by the attacker. Okay, now the process P1 starts executing the malicious code, and that's it. Whatever the malicious with whatever the wrong intent the attacker has written, that was done. So this type of attack can happen through stack and buffer overflow, right? So these are some of the different types of attacks. And then attacks can also happen through virus. You know, viruses are self-replicating programs. So once virus enters into a system, it starts spreading at a faster rate and it moves from one system to another system. There are different types of virus available, like file virus. It will affect only file. When a file is opened, it will move from one file to another file. There is a virus called boot sector virus, which will stay in the memory. In the memory in the boot sector, it will stay, and when the operating system is loaded, the virus will infect the operating system. And the macro, if these are the viruses which is created through macros that was written through Microsoft Excel or through Microsoft VB Visual Basic. These viruses are written through those macros, and source code virus which will affect the only the source codes like C program or Java program. Like there are different types of viruses available which you can go through it. Okay. So, so there is, and one should be cautious when you are using the password, because password somebody can take your password by using keystroke logger. So keystroke logger is a device. It's a USB device which can be connected to the system. So it will store every keystroke. So if you are using somebody else computer, say if you are going to your browsing center and you are typing your email password, and if there is a keystroke logger is connected with that particular PC, then they can track your password. Okay. And there is another form of this is worm is also similar to virus. So worm, it is is also similar to a virus. It will have two programs. One is called as a grappling hook, the other one is a worm. Okay, this grappling hook will initially say one system is already infected by the worm. It's one type of virus. Say one system is already infected by the worm, then then this system will somehow send the grappling hook to another system, to the target system. Through any means, it will send the grappling hook to the target system. And once the grappling hook reaches the target system, it will request the original system from where the grappling hook came to send the worm. And then the other system will send the worm. And now the worm is transmitted to this system. And so this system is also corrupted. Again, this system will do the same job. It will send the grappling hook to next system, and it continues like this. So this type of attack is called as worm. So this type of worm with the two, there are different types of worm. So this type of worms with two programs, grappling hook and worm, this worm was introduced by one particular student in 1988, and his name was Maurice. So this is called as Maurice internet worm. Okay, so next, coming to cryptography. Cryptography is one of the security tool which is used to ensure secure communication. So basically, cryptography, what it does in the sense, it encrypts the data before sending, and the encrypted data will be sent, and the receiver can only the receiver should decrypt the data. Only after decrypting the data, the receiver can understand what is being sent. Okay, so there are two processes involved here. One is called as encryption, the other one is called as decryption. So if there is some message is to be sent, then the sender, the sender, what he will do in the sense, the sender will encrypt the message, which we can call it as simply E of C. E of C, E of Y, or E of M. Okay, E of M is called as encryption. Once you encrypt the message, this is message, M is a message, S is the sender. Sender will encrypt the message E of M. Once you encrypt the message, what you get is called a ciphertext. Let us call it as C. Ciphertext means it is it is not the text which does not make any sense. The message will make sense, but the ciphertext will not make any sense. By reading the ciphertext, nobody can understand any information from that. Nobody can get any meaningful content from the ciphertext. Okay. After converting into the ciphertext, the sender will send the data to the receiver. Sender will send the ciphertext to the receiver. So receiver gets the ciphertext. After getting the ciphertext, receiver will perform decryption. So let us represent decryption with D. So receiver performs decryption on the ciphertext. As a result of decryption, the receiver will get the original message M. Okay, so this technique is called as so this technique is called as cryptography. So receiver, sender will encrypt and the receiver will decrypt. How it is done? So there are two types of encryption. There are two types of cryptographic techniques available. One is called as symmetric key cryptography. The other one is called as asymmetric cryptography. Okay. Symmetric cryptography means what? In the sense, the sender and the receiver, they will both use a same key. For encryption and decryption, a key is required. Okay, key is nothing but a sequence of characters or a sequence of characters or numbers or a combination of both. Okay, that is a key. So the sender and the receiver will use the same key. So that is called as, so let me call it as KS. S stands for symmetric key. So the key used by the sender is also the same, and the key used by the receiver is also the same. So sender, when you want to send a message M, this is yes, right? So like this is yes, okay. So sender, when you want to send a message M, what the sender will do in the sense, sender will encrypt the message using the key KS. Okay, whenever encryption is done, a key is required. Without key, you cannot encrypt. In the previous slide, I have said just you can encrypt, because there we have not discussed the concept of key, but with key only encryption happens. So sender will encrypt the message with the key KS. The message is M. As a result, what the sender will get is the ciphertext. Now the ciphertext, the sender will send the ciphertext to the receiver. A receiver will decrypt the ciphertext using the same key KS, because both the sender and the receiver will use the same key. That is called as symmetric key cryptography. So receiver will decrypt the ciphertext using the same key. After decrypting, the receiver will get the original message, which is M. Okay, so during the transmission period, during the communication channel, while it is getting transmitted to the network, even if an attacker gets the data, he will get only the ciphertext. That is C only he will get, and with that he cannot do anything because C is not readable, and and the attacker cannot decrypt it, because for decrypting, two things he should know. One is he should know the decrypting algorithm, another thing he should know the key. Okay, so so the encryption will be done through encryption algorithm, decryption will be done through decryption algorithm. Basically decryption is a reverse of the encryption. So as the attacker will not be knowing the key and the decryption algorithm, so the attacker cannot get the what you call message. So this is how this particular symmetric key algorithm works, right? So so there are different types of symmetric key algorithm available. So there is an algorithm called DES, which is one of the mm, uh, most older symmetric key technique. Okay, and this symmetric key technique can be applied at different levels. It is not that one level. Say there is an algorithm called triple DES. There is an algorithm called triple DES. It applies symmetric key technique for 3 times using 2 or 3 keys. Using 2 or 3 keys. See what it is doing here. The sender, what he is doing is to create the ciphertext C. The sender is first encrypting the message using the key K1. Okay, the sender is first encrypting the message using the key K1, and then he is decrypting the message using the key K2. See, if the message is encrypted using K1, then you have to decrypt using the key K1, then only you will get the message. Otherwise, you will not get the message. So this is also, even though this is decryption, this is also equivalent to encryption, because originally the message is encrypted using the key K1. Again, you are decrypting with the message using the key K2, means this is also one form of encryption. This is not decryption because another key is used. Again, that is encrypted using the key K3. Okay. As a result, what you get is the ciphertext, and that is sent to the receiver. Now the receiver, to get the original message, what the receiver should do? First, so there are 3 levels of decryption, 3 levels of encryption. So first, the receiver should decrypt using the key K3. Okay, using the key K3, because the outer level is what? Encrypted with K3. So first decrypt with K3, then it is decrypted with K2. Now you encrypt with, the receiver should now encrypt with K2. The receiver should now encrypt with K2. This is second level. And in the third level, it is encrypted with K1. So the receiver should decrypt with K1. Okay. So all so of C. So the receiver, so all these things should be done. Okay, right? So when the receiver performs all these things, when the receiver performs all these uh, sorry, I think I'm representing in the wrong way. Yes. So see this at the top level, it is encrypted with K3. So that will go in the least level. Okay. So when you decrypt with K3, when you decrypt with K3, so first you should decrypt with K3. Okay. Then once you decrypt with K3, what you will get is you will get this part of the message. You will get this part of the message. Okay. So now you got this part of the message that you encrypt with K2. That you encrypt with K2. Okay. That you encrypt with K2. Okay. And at the, so once you encrypt with K2, you will get this part of the message. Okay. You will get this part of the message. Okay. That you decrypt with K1. That you decrypt with uh, d of K1. Okay, d of K1. So then you will get the original message. So this is what the receiver should do. Okay, like that, different levels of encryption can be used. and the keys will be very long. For example, there is an algorithm called AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, where there are keys of this much size were used, 128, 192, or 256 bits. Okay, so this is how the symmetric key algorithm works. Basically, it uses one same key for encryption and decryption, right? So this diagram just explains that. So the original message that you want to encrypt is called as plain text. Okay, the message is otherwise called as plain text. The message is encrypted using an encryption algorithm and using a key K. There is an encryption algorithm which is encrypted using the key K. As a result, what you get is called a ciphertext. What you get is called a ciphertext. Now the ciphertext will be sent to the receiver. Okay, receiver will decrypt the ciphertext using the decryption algorithm using the same key K, and as a result he will get the plain text and he can read it. Now even if the attacker is in between, attacker can get only the ciphertext. So attacker cannot understand anything from the ciphertext. Attacker cannot understand anything from the ciphertext. So this is the channel network. So this network channel is insecure. That is, anybody can read something. Somebody can tap and wire and they can read. But now, even though attacker reads, the attacker cannot make anything out of that. Okay. As sender and the receiver are using the same key, one of them should generate the key and it will be shared between two. Okay. Or in some cases, either the sender can create the key and give to the receiver, or the receiver can give the key, create the key and send to the receiver, or in some cases there will be a central party which will create the key and they will send to both the sender and the receiver. The central party is something is called as a trusted arbiter. Okay, so this type of algorithm is called as symmetric key algorithm. The next type of algorithm is called as asymmetric algorithm. In an asymmetric algorithm, there will be two keys. Every user will have two keys. One is called as public key, the other one is called as a private key. Okay. Every user will have two keys. One is the public key, the other one is a private key. So uh, let us assume there are two users, say Alice and Bob. Okay. So Alice will have his own public key and private key. Okay, say Ali's public key is E comma N. Okay, say Bob's public key, say Ali's public key is E comma N, Ali's private key is D comma N. Say Bob's public key is something else, C comma N and F comma N. Okay, right? So this is Ali's public key E comma N, and this is Ali's private key D comma N. This is Bob's public key C comma N. This is Bob's private key F comma N. Okay, like that there can be any number of users. All users will have their own public key and their own private key. Now, what happens in the sense, everybody's public key will be known to everyone. Everybody's public key will be known to everyone. So Alice will know Bob's public key and Bob also will know Ali's public key. Okay. So if there is another user C, he is having some public key D comma N and some private key G comma N, then C's public key will be also known to everybody. Okay. So public key is public. Everybody's public key is known to everybody, but nobody will know their private key. A's private key will be known only to A. B's private key will be known only to B. C's private key will be known only to C. Okay. Now, what should they do with the public and the private key, right? Say for example, if allies want to send a data to Bob, if allies want to send some information to Bob, okay, and allies want to ensure confidentiality, and allies want to ensure confidentiality. That is, confidentiality means only Bob can read the data. Nobody should be able to read the data. That is called as confidential. Only Bob should be able to read the data. Nobody should read the data. That is called as confidentiality. Then what allies will do in the sense, allies will encrypt the data using the public key of Bob. Okay. Allies will encrypt the data using the public key of Bob. Say I'm calling the public key as U. U represents public key and B represents Bob's public key and the message. So the message is encrypted using whose public key? Bob's public key. As the result, whatever the ciphertext is generated, that is sent to Bob. Okay. If some message is encrypted using someone's public key, then that can be decrypted only by using their private key. Okay. If a message is encrypted by using someone's public key, then it can be decrypted only with their private key. So this message is encrypted using Bob's public key, so it can be decrypted only by using Bob's private key. And Bob's private key is known only to Bob. C, D, E, and other users, they don't know Bob's private key. They know the public key. Okay. So only Bob can decrypt it. Even if others receive this data, they cannot decrypt it. Okay. If a message is encrypted using someone's public key, then it can be decrypted only by using their private key. So now Bob will decrypt it using his private key. So let me call it as private key as R. So it will be decrypted by using the private key of Bob. And now he will get the message. Okay, this is to ensure confidentiality. But if A want to ensure authentication, he don't want confidentiality. Authentication means to ensure that the data is coming from the correct person. Authentication means, let's try to understand. Authentication means that to ensure that the data is coming from the correct person. So A is sending the data to B, but how B will ensure that this is coming only from A? Or, or how B will know that there is no attacker in between and that attacker is not sending that? How can we ensure that? For that, if authentication is required, then Allies, what Allies will do in the sense, Allies will encrypt the data using his private key. Okay, what that is using the private key of A. A's with A's private key, Allies will encrypt the data, and then Allies will send the data to Bob. Okay, yeah, Allies will encrypt the data using A's private key. As a result, whatever the ciphertext is created, that is sent to Bob. Now this message is encrypted using Allies private key. So it can be decrypted only by using Allies public key. Okay, fine. This is here Allies want only authentication. He don't want confidential. That is anybody else can also read. Not a issue. But how would you ensure that it is only coming from Allies? Because it can be decrypted only by using Allies public key. If you want to decrypt it, you have to use Allies public key. That is, you have to use KUB. U represents public, sorry, KUA. U represents public key, A represents Allies. So as this message is decryptable only by using Allies public key, this message is only coming from Allies. Okay. So this is how this public key cryptography works. So to briefly to say, in a public key cryptography, every user will have two keys, a private key and a public key. And the public key of all users are known to everyone. When the user want to ensure confidentiality, when the sender wants to ensure confidentiality, the sender will encrypt the data using the receiver's public key, and then he will send the data. Now the data can be decrypted only by using the receiver's private key. As nobody else knows the receiver's private key, only the intended receiver can decrypt it. If the sender wants to ensure authentication, then the sender will encrypt the data with his private key, and then he will send the data. Now this data can be decrypted only with the sender's public key. So this will ensure authentication. So this is how encryption and decryption is achieved. Okay. So there is an example. I don't want to discuss that because it will be lengthy. And then authentication is also done by using something called as hash function. So which is also otherwise called as message digest. So like how we have discussed some hashing techniques. So using a hash function also authentication can be achieved. Fine. Let us stop this topic here. Thank you.